Hello, hello. Welcome back to the P2P Soap Box. I'm your host and P2P BFF, Marcie Maxwell. Now, let me ask you something. What happens when you change everything about your signature event all at once? The name, the location, the timing, all of it. For a lot of organizations, that kind of shift feels really risky. You worry about losing momentum, confusing your community, or even putting revenue on the line. But what if that kind of change could actually bring your teams closer together and deepen your connection to your mission? Today, I'm joined by Liz DiGeronimo, Director of Community Fundraising, and Erik Gordon, Director of Marketing at Curebound. Curebound is a San Diego-based nonprofit raising and investing strategic funding in translational cancer research to accelerate discoveries from the lab to real patients. In this conversation, Liz and Erik take us inside their bold 2025 transformation, where they reimagined a long-standing event with deep community roots. They share what signaled it was time to evolve, how they invited their community into the process so no one felt left behind, and what they learned about what truly matters to their supporters. We also are going to get into the real work behind the scenes, how marketing and fundraising came together around a shared story, why clarity mattered more than perfection, and how staying grounded in mission helped guide every decision. If you've ever wondered how to lead your team and your community through big change with confidence, this is a good one for you. So let's jump right into my conversation with Liz DiGeronimo and Erik Gordon from Curebound. Erik and Liz, welcome to the P2P Soap Box.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
We're excited to have y'all. Well, let's jump right in. I always like to start. We all each tell us a little bit about your kind of personal and professional journeys that led you to your current roles at Curebound. Liz, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so I have been actually deviated from what I went to school for. I was going to school for city planning, and then I found my first job at a nonprofit. And while I was working there as a receptionist, there was a cycling event, a fundraising cycling event. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so from then on, I just kind of worked, and I had a lengthy career in endurance or cycling events and fundraising. And then I heard about Curebound at the PAP. We were a different name a little while ago. And it was just seemed so fun. I love that everything was here in San Diego where I live. And so I ended up here, and I'm very happy. It's been great. I've been here for about just under 4 years now.
Awesome. Well, Erik, what about you?
For me, quite a winding road. Maybe similar to Liz, I actually went to college for oil painting. So I have a degree in fine art. And after college, I actually started a coffee business in the outdoor industry out of an old VW. And I drove around the country for about half a decade. Opened a bunch of coffee shops as an entrepreneur in that way. And then around COVID, did a bit of a career change into just the marketing realm, more so actually in the outdoor industry. And a little over a year ago, joined Curebound and was just really looking to make a change and get a bit more into just more impactful space. And it's been really fantastic. And just a really great ride so far.
Awesome. Well, so I know you mentioned the Curebound organization, the event is primarily San Diego based. So if there are people who might not be familiar with the organization, with the event, can you just give us a quick overview kind of the org and of your peer-to-peer portfolio?
Of course. So Curebound is a organization where we raise funds to fund cancer research. One thing that is I find really cool about Curebound is that we require collaboration for our research partners. So if you work at one institution, you're required to work with somebody from a different institution with the belief that more than one mind is better than just a single mind, right? So we fund our institutions here in San Diego. Our event is based here. That's all we do is fund cancer research. We have our own scientific advisory board who approves our grants and all of that stuff. So it's kind of unique there. And then with Curebound, we raise money through our peer-to-peer event, which is called the Curebound Cancer Challenge. And we also have a Concert for Cures event as well. And that's how we fund the research. For the peer-to-peer event, for the Curebound Cancer Challenge, we have it's a cycling, walk, run, spin. We have group classes, all sorts. I tell people, if you want to participate, there's a way for you to participate at this event. So the event hosts around 3,000 people, and we raise about $4 million all in.
You made a really big move in 2025 with this event, because not only did you change the branding, you changed the timing, and you changed the location of this, signature event that the organization has had for years that has really deep roots in the community. So can you take us back, walk us through that change, take us back to that moment, what signaled you that it was time to evolve, and what felt at stake with that decision?
Of course, yeah. So we are formally called Padres Pedal the Cause, and our event was at Petco Park. That's of course where the Padres play, and there we were there for over 10 years, and they were fantastic partners of Curebound. But what we were finding is that we were having an inconsistent date. That is the number one, one of the reasons why we had to change. So we would get our date 6 months before our event usually. So in 2024, for the 2024 event, we didn't know what date we were going to have until November of 2023. And our event was in March. So they're like, this is your date. And then we just had to start and just get going.
That is stressful.
It was really stressful. We were like, oh, okay, let's go. And it had been like that for a couple of years. So that is hard. As you know, most people who are in this industry, having this a consistent date is really, really important. And then our footprint at Petco is shrinking. So before we used to finish on the field, and they were like, well, we can't do that anymore. So we're just at their main event site. So our footprint was shrinking significantly. And then we, of course, were creating major brand confusion with it being Padre Pedal the Cause and then Curebound. So before, the whole entire organization was called Padres Pedal the Cause. And then we combined with another organization and formed Curebound. And Padres Pedal the Cause came to an event underneath the Curebound umbrella. I know that's a little bit confusing, but people were like, what's Curebound? I didn't donate to Curebound. I donated to Padres Pedal the Cause. So it was creating a lot of confusion in the community. And so that was when our former CEO and our board of directors started thinking that maybe this isn't the right place for us anymore, and that maybe we need to find a consistent date and do all of those things. And so those were the reasons. And then, of course, leaving Petco Park, we lost a huge infrastructure there. We had their staff helping us at their event. They have a main stage. We didn't have to really bring very much in. They all had it. We had major support there. And so, of course, leaving Petco Park, and we ended up at the soccer field at UCSD, we had to bring everything in. And so, of course, there's a cost associated with that. And how are we going to do all that? That's not usually what we have done in the past. So a lot of that was kind of, what are we going to do now? And so we worked through that. And that was actually probably the easiest thing, right? Because we were able to find a company that could replicate that for us.
That is quite the undertaking, and a whole new, different kind of stress than only getting your date a few months out to actually making all of those moves. So, when you think about when people really love something and it starts to change, again, there's this mix of excitement about new potential, but also hesitation. So how did you bring your established community into this process so they felt like they were part of it, they weren't surprised by it? And, along that way, what did you learn about, what really matters to your supporters?
Yeah, I think at first I was like, we're leaving Petco Park to go where? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I was like, how can we make sure that all of our top fundraisers and our team captains and our community felt supported and that they felt heard? So we were like, let's meet with every single person we possibly could. It didn't matter if it was Zoom, we had them over for coffee, if it was wherever. So we hosted probably well over 200 meetings, just letting people know, and we're hearing their feedback and just, getting to the reasons why and the name change. And we'd be like, drum roll, our name change is the Curebound Cancer Challenge now. And what do you feel about that? And, just kind of really hearing people and bringing them with us. And through these conversations, it was really shocking to me is probably one of the most surprising things is people didn't care about where we were. They cared about why they were participating in the Cancer Challenge, which is to fund cancer research. And so more and more conversations, it started to get easier. We started to become really proud of this move and what it meant for our community. And our community members felt that way as well. And they felt part of the decision and not just being told something. Because again, it had been a very long time at Petco Park.
Beyond getting that buy-in from your participants, obviously, big change like this, there's a lot of internal alignment that is needed. And I think there's probably a lot of listeners here that has been, their make or break moment. So Erik, you're on the marketing side. So how did your marketing team and your fundraising teams really come together around the shared story and getting everybody moving in the same direction with this change with such confidence?
Yeah. Well, it was really actually a great moment and time for us to just kind of prompt a refresh of like how we talk about our event and our organization internally as well as externally. So it really presented this awesome moment, and honestly, it still does as we're kind of building into the brand a bit more with the name change. It just allows us to have really like open and honest conversations about potentially like, oh, how did we used to talk about the event or the organization and potentially the goals that we had previously? What got us there? Even the types of messaging that were really effective, the things that we've been noticing when we're reaching out to our participants in our community and communicating that change. It really, sometimes we have these meetings here called Ask Me Anythings, where just we sit together as a group and everybody just kind of brings up some useful things that are happening in their world and then the organization. And it felt like just an awesome moments like that were happening for us, where we were able to make any effective changes that we were maybe needed to break away from as far as like things we used to do and aren't as effective going forward. And then also when it comes to just having that message land with our community, events like this are so emotional and people get really attached to what they are used to. And then when we're communicating this change, it allowed us to really hear from our community what was the most important thing to them. And in turn allowed us to kind of market the event a little bit better, communicate it better, and find out the things that are the most meaningful, not only in the mission and the message, but also the experience. So just like a fantastic learning experience all around, an opportunity.
Being out in the community and trying to realign actually helped Erik and I realign like what we were talking about. I would always be like, cancer challenge, cancer challenge, cancer challenge. And Erik's like, Curebound, 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 Curebound. And so we had to really like look at it and be like, how are we going to become like full Curebound, and what are we going to do? And what does that look like? Even if we change the logo on our gear at Cancer Challenge and all that stuff. And sometimes it was hard and not easy. But going forward, we're definitely, we're in meetings together all the time, and we're working together and trying to create the messaging, what we say out to the public and then what Erik's putting out to the public to be the same. So definitely, and through those Ask Me anything like that, where we were like, oh, we're not that different. And we just tried to work really hard, and we just try to stay close connected on what our messaging is, and what his goal is the same thing as mine, right? It's to raise as much money as we can for cancer research. And at the bottom line, that's how we kind of started aligning our messages, was just, why are we here? This is why we're here, and let's make it happen. And so that's kind of our evolution working together last year. And I think that we're seeing a lot of success now that we're kind of on the same page.
No, I love seeing the magic when marketing and development teams do come together, because I do think, again, unfortunately, that is where a lot of organizations struggle, whether it's ego, whether it's my expertise versus your expertise, or just an unwillingness to listen to the other person. And so it's always great to hear stories of where that works and stories that bring that group together. Because I think Erik, y'all joined us at our conference back in February, and you talked a little bit about how, the real risk wasn't just the change itself, but it was the story not being clear. And how do you make sure you avoid that? So how did this evolution of the event reshape kind of your approach to storytelling and, keeping that mission front and center, while you also have to make sure that they know about every other little detail that is shifting in the event?
Yeah, well, one unique thing when it comes to storytelling for us is that now that the Cancer Challenge, formerly Potter's Pedal, is now under the Curebound umbrella, it really allowed us to weave together. We have another event that's called Curebound Concert for Cures, which is a really big event here in San Diego as well. And when we're kind of approaching storytelling in that way about Curebound in general, it allows us to, the people that are experiencing the concert event, we actually don't have a ton of crossover, surprisingly, because they're just very, very different events and populations there. But when it comes to storytelling around Curebound, it allows us to really say, like, no matter where you're coming from, whether this is kind of your wheelhouse coming to more of our concert or participating in the Cancer Challenge or any other event that we have, it allows us to just to center around the mission, of course, but then also make it really easy to communicate about the Curebound organization as a whole. And ideally allows us to kind of bring up mission-based moments that carry over from the challenge to the concert to kind of all the other touch points within the organization, which just really bolsters the connection we have to all of our community and supporters.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I think I actually heard it at the peer-to-peer, was your mission is your North Star. So it's everything, if it's just grounded in that, everything else is just, I don't want to say falls into place, but kind of it does. You just remember why you're here. Your mission is the reason why you're here. And then if you're at Curebound, we all live and breathe that mission. And that's the most important thing, just to always keep that in mind, and just keep that as your North Star and just keep grinding towards that. And that's kind of, I think once we all discovered that, we all just kind of got on the same page and just kind of started making it happen. So I think we had everything changing, but at the core of it all is this mission and this desire to fund like really important research, especially in days like today. So yeah, that's probably my biggest lesson from all of this change.
So you're on the other side of the first year of the new branding and the new location and the new date. Tell us a little bit about kind of the results, where you see that momentum, what your surprises were, and kind of what you're looking forward to as this now evolves even more in 2026.
Oh yeah, I can talk about this all day. We are so excited because we raised more money, actually, which was one of the risks. I should have said it earlier, was, of course, having a revenue risk. And we didn't. We actually raised more money this year, in 2025, which was fantastic. And we saw a lot of momentum with our teams, in particular, our friends and family teams. They seemed to really just rally around it, and they drove competition. They're like, who's going to be the number one fundraiser this year and all that stuff. So we kind of really rallied around that type of thing, and just like friendly competition, especially amongst like some of our larger teams. Also a lot of competition. I would say a surprise is competition between friends and family teams and corporate teams. And they're like, that team has a 10. I want a 10. How do I get that 10? And like all that stuff. And in the past, that necessarily wasn't always true. But for this year, or in 2025, for some reason, that was something that was just rocking and rolling the whole event. And I think that this year, we're really excited to really take the lessons learned, because again, it was a new event, new site. We brought everything in. We learned some lessons, and we're going to expand and create an even better event footprint. And now we are clear on our messaging, even more so because we're not doing it real time. So we're really looking forward to just getting out there and talking about Curebound and Curebound Cancer Challenge, and building on all that stuff that we learned from last year around just how important it is to remind people what we're doing here, and to fundraise unapologetically for it. And that is kind of what we're digging into for 2026. I'll let you know how it goes, but so far so good.
I just think it's always so interesting, because I think there is this you could say misguided belief or just unclear belief that you have to have your event at a sexy location, right? And that, if your event's at the zoo or at the amazing stadium in town, that is what is going to draw people. And I think while there are certainly examples of that being true, I think sometimes it creates a different motivation for why people are showing up to your event than the people who are going to come to the soccer fields and, this experience that may not have the same immediate it factor of being at Petco Park, but they're there for the mission. And so it really, I've had that debate so many times with people that wanted to have a walk, at a zoo. And I'm like, okay, well, are people coming to the zoo or are they coming for your event? And that's a very important distinction when you want to motivate fundraising and when you're thinking about cost and not just having people there for just that experiential cool factor.
For sure. I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons, actually, if we're talking about lessons, was just that we're here for this reason, very specific reason. And that's what we want people to come and join us and to feel that and to feel the mission and to be part of the mission. And it was great. And we love the Padres. We still we have our concert there. We're still best friends with them. But for this particular event, it really, when we started going through all these changes, that's why I mentioned a couple times that we really brought the mission forward. And that's the center of our being now. Where not necessarily that wasn't true in the past. I mean, it was, but not as much as it is now. And so that just kind of started floating to the top as like the most important thing. And that changed all of our messaging. And so that was a huge lesson that we learned from our past event to this current one.
Erik, what about you? What were some of your big takeaways?
Man, well, I would say probably one of the biggest ones, other than the obvious, name change and kind of alignment there, was also being able, like the fact that we had a set date and a set location was so great for just the momentum and the messaging cycle that you go through within a year of like how to keep messaging fresh and engaging. And then for us also like finding the right times to highlight, different events in our case that can potentially bring people over into, kind of cross the event audience there. So that's been really awesome to be able to like play in like the full sandbox that is Curebound in that way. So we love that. That's been super beneficial for a lot of things. And then also, especially when it comes to the change of venue, kind of being in a like the less grandiose per se Petco Park, but in just more of like a space that we are creating in a lot of ways from the ground up, that like every place we put something has the ability to be a mission moment and a place that we can reflect like what our priorities are and kind of push away any distractions, I guess, of like really everything there is very intentional. We can guide the experience really well as far as, creating a new layout, however we want, the event day to go and people to spend their time. And so much of these days is kind of vying for people's attention. And, on an event day, you got, 6-8 hours to like continuously keep people in and bring people into the mission. And so, it's just a really awesome time to be able to, with the name change as well, just like really rethink and embolden what that message is and should be on event day and beyond.
Well, that's great. And I always love thinking about how do you bring mission to life on site at an event. I remember earlier on in my career saying to someone, how are we bringing the mission to life at our event? And they're like, well, our logo is everywhere. I'm like, that is not the same thing. Like, you're right. It's well branded, but does it very well speak to our mission and what we're actually trying to accomplish? And so, that the open slate of a big park can be intimidating, but I think sometimes for a marketing person, it gives them it's this blank slate. We can do whatever we want with it, which is really exciting. So if there are people that are, interested in learning more about what you're doing at Curebound, about this event, where can we send people? How can people get involved?
Yeah, definitely head to curebound.org. That's going to be our main place where you can check out all of our events, especially the Campus Challenge. And then also on social media, usually it's just going to be at Curebound Official or just at Curebound on different platforms. So there's that there. We have some really great videos that are up on YouTube, actually, that we've gone and interviewed some pretty amazing researchers that we funded where they did talk about their mission and their impact. So lots of places to check us out, and we hope you do.
Awesome. Well, we will drop all of those links in our show notes. So Liz and Erik, thank you so much for joining us and tell us a little bit more about how you navigated this brand refresh and what it meant for your event.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thanks, Marcie. Really appreciate it.
The P2P Soap Box is produced in partnership with True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. Music this week is by Super Neato. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we hope you'll consider doing just that for our show. But the best thing you can do to support the P2P Soap Box is simply to share the show with a friend or colleague. Thank you for listening.